between the page number and the actual page that we're talking about. But a couple of the periodic reviews that we should be looking at doing, and I would hope that we can focus on effort this year, is a qualitative evaluation of the demand and capacity for our major recreation facilities. This includes pools, gyms, racket courts, teen centers, etc. We want to take a look at how these resources are distributed throughout the city. We want to adjust plans as appropriate to accommodate the changes, our ever-changing community, both the demographics and the requests and needs of our community. So this is something we should be looking at doing in a more comprehensive manner. And then policy 6A is a similar, a different, similar review with a different focus. They're reviewing the demographic trends and interests of the overall city, and the different groups that are using the resources of the city. So the first one is more of the what, and the second one's more of the who. Taking a look at how to adjust our master plan, and ultimately how to focus the work we do as a commission. I found it in more recent review of the master plan that there are some things that we need to be looking at and following that. Look to follow a little more closely as a commission. Next slide. And specifically, there is an action plan that's called out in the master plan. Can you move the video, please? You just slide in the video overlay. So the action plan is a very comprehensive document that recently learned about more specifically, and it's a very detailed view of the master plan projects and programs, and actually itemizes 114, maybe it's even a bigger number, a very large number of programs and projects in great detail. On the left side, the descriptions include a lot of the information that's typical of what we find in the CIP review for each specific project that staff is working on for a given capital improvement project for each year. This includes the location, the applicable master plan policy reference that the project or program falls under, the anticipated years of implementation, and a cost breakdown, which includes both planning and design and implementation capital expenses and anticipated operation expenses costs for staff per year of implementation. So there's a lot of information here that unfortunately we haven't taken advantage of in the past. Most of the projects that we work on as a commission, that we create ad hocs for and work on an annualized basis for, were already listed and identified in the master plan, and there was so we can look to get a head start on the information to help streamline and make our work and staff's work more efficient. The action plan was designed to be a flexible document, something that we can update on an annual basis much more easily than the master plan. So as projects are completed and time goes on, the action plan gets updated, and as the funding landscape shifts, the priorities for projects can adapt as well. And this is kind of what staff was primarily been doing with the annual CIP plan. As you know, we have there's a CIP budget for each year, each fiscal year, and then there's a 5-year CIP projection moving forward. There's aspects in the action plan that are directly tied into tracking the CIP, tracking and planning CIPs that would be very useful for us to take advantage of. As I mentioned, the intended usage is that this is maintained separately from the master plan, but the action plan feeds an updated set of projects during the CIP process. And it also allows for new projects to be added based on prioritization. Obviously, the master plan was created in 2017 and was an extremely comprehensive work, exhaustively comprehensive at the time, but new things come up and priority shift. And so it's important to be able to adapt. The next page shows next slide, please. This is a snapshot, which is pretty hard to, it's kind of small. But this is just a small snapshot of what the action plan looks like. You can see there's on the far left, it's referencing the specific goals and priorities and programs. They're called out in the master plan. There's a type of project. There's a reference in terms of the location, how it applies. The actual name of the project or program description is included. So that as we look to do a review of the master plan, some of the 5-year review type of things that we talked about, and taking a step back, when you talk about a review of a master plan, I think the most obvious thing to do is take a look at the existing projects and programs and see where our successes have been, and see what we haven't been able to accomplish, consider the priorities and how to move forward. This is all work we do as a commission on a regular basis, and I think certainly the work that we've done has been very much consistent with the spirit of the master plan, but I think taking advantage of this action plan will help us be more efficient in the future, and it's also we are specifically called on to do this through the master plan. This is something that staff wasn't aware of and the commission wasn't aware of. I think a big factor related to this was the transition of the primary architects of the master plan from both the commission and from staff. The CSC director moved on, and so I think there's some significant institutional knowledge that was lost, or it was, if not lost, it was pushed off to the side. So I have been reaching out to some of the Parks and Rec commissioners who were involved with this more directly, getting a little advice. Look forward to having an opportunity for hopefully for at least one person to join us and kind of give us some insight to help share an understanding of what the intent and was for creating. Unfortunately, no one was able to attend the retreat today to review that. Any questions about this before we move on?
Where does this live right now?
So this is a document which Darren found and we will be sharing this with the full commission. Probably be good to go ahead and attach this to the agenda as an attachment.
That would be great because it's hard to see from back
Yeah,
here.
sure.
Yeah. And those items are actually pulled from the master plan.
Yeah, so if you look at one of the wider columns that says project program description, that is the text that comes out of all of these, each of these programs and descriptions that are sorry, these programs and descriptions that are called out. So each one of these is numbered. As we look to do a review of the status of this is extremely helpful.
So each one of those then turns into a place on.
It gets a line.
Yeah.
So there. And we'll share the document. I could open the document quickly if you want to take a quick look at it.
It'd be great.
Any other questions while we're up to speed here? Did you have a question?
Yeah, so is the action plan, just understand the process here, is it updated on a quarterly basis or annual basis? How do you develop action plan implementation methods?
That's an excellent question. So this document was created in 2017 and has not been updated.
So it's attached to the.
Oh,
master
we have
plan.
some work to do.
Okay, so it's attached to the master plan and action plan is part of it.
It's-
And the master plan hasn't been updated since that time either.
The master plan hasn't been updated. That's not surprising to us, and an update to the master plan would require approval by city council. So I guess one open question would be, is the action plan something that is this for the commission to update, or do we need any council oversight on this?
A lot of changes.
So, yeah, there's lots of changes.
So what, and there are a lot of changes that are really impactful. COVID happened since,
Yeah,
and so people's priorities may have
Right.
changed.
Right,
The
absolutely.
surveys were done in 2015, that's a long time ago, and the surveys were the baseline for the plan and the action items.
Mhm.
Foothills open, I mean, there's so many,
That's
the trees were added to the work plan for this commission, so. I'm trying to figure out if you're hoping to look at, see what's completed, or, you know, where we are in this implementation plan, or what's potentially missing, you know, its updates.
Yeah, I mean, see, for example, on recreation facility updates, each specific park is called out as a specific line item. So there's a schedule, an updated schedule for parks and things like that.
so do we add things coming up like the 3 people in public addressing about their neighborhood park? Do we add that, what we could do to help them as a community?
Oh, we would. That.
Just as an
yeah,
example.
that might not be a great example, because that's probably outside the purview
Okay.
of our commission.
Okay,
It's something we want to talk with staff about. And also, just to clarify, when there is public comment to an item that's not on the agenda, typically the commission does not comment on it.
I see.
We're not permitted to comment because it's not an agenda.
got it.
It's an opportunity for public comment, and it may be something that would lead to a future agenda item.
So how do we bring that comment to staff or to city council?
Usually at the end of the meeting, we'll have an opportunity to talk about in future agendas,
Okay,
but also that would be a time to bring up future interest in initiatives. So this gives you an idea of the depth, and there's also a second tab that's more finance related.
So who put this together? You might have said that.
The original
Members of
the
that were building.
department
So it was built in conjunction with the master.
building conjunction with the master.
so that was 5 years ago.
I mean, it's probably started 7 or 8. I'm not sure exactly how long the master plan process was in place. And I also don't know what the specific interaction between commission members and staff was in the creation of this document, and how that was intended to be managed moving forward. I'm going to stop sharing unless further questions with this. Can we go back to the presentation, please? Okay, the next page.
Rose, give me a second.
A few other things that were highlight that I found in the master plan that I wanted to highlight is a prioritization process, which is specifically called out under the action plan. And this is more or less what we follow, but it's something that we should look to follow more strictly, or as a matter of best practice. Than in general, I think as a commission, we've done a pretty good job in stumbling onto the right path. But I think that we all agree there's a more efficient way to progress on things than to stumble. And that's what I'd like to target some of our specific effort on this next coming here. So the prioritization process it's fairly intuitive. You want to focus on filling gaps. You want to respond to changes and growth in the community. We want to prioritize what the community wants prioritized. And overall, we want to maximize the resources, the bounty of resources we have. We still have limitations. We have limitations in terms of staff resources. We have limitations in terms of money we can spend on projects, and externally, I know we're viewed as a wealthy community, and certainly compared to other communities we are, but that doesn't mean that it's not difficult to that doesn't mean we have unlimited resources by any means. It's more the opposite. It's really prioritizing and sorting out how to make best use and optimize and prioritize our resources, and then realizing multiple benefits is something that we want to focus on benefits of projects based on our master plan, but this isn't we're not a silo in the city. There are many other departments and many other master plans that there's a symbiosis with, and we want to look to gain multiple benefits across departments and across different areas of the city to the extent possible. Next slide, please. There's also specific guidelines in the master plan to direct how to evaluate future projects. So that there's a question that came up. So when an idea for these are questions that should be asked when we consider a future project, and again, looking at this as a best practice for evaluating a future project. Does it exist already, or is it something that beyond the current resources? For a project, is this something within the control of the city or not? Looking at how projects apply throughout the city and looking for balance. Looking at when programs are overbooked, that suggests that we might need more. We want to focus on quality, and it's not just and it's also perception of quality, and that's not always the same thing. We need to be mindful of that. Focused on needs that are expressed either through staff, council, or the board, and more importantly, community feedback. Here, that's updated. Seems like I didn't get copied in. But go back to some demographic trends and barriers and demand.
One of the things that has been very evident through the master plan and in many of our discussions is sort of balancing all of these things with the ecological impact, and that's not here. And I think something about how do we look at the project and consider ecological implications for benefits or for potential impacts that are not so beneficial. And how do we juggle all of that? And we've been struggling with this for the past year. Before that, it was not really, I don't know, and I wasn't here, so I don't know. But I think we need to look at that here because relying on the environmental review process to identify the problems is just not sufficient. They only look at whether a species will go extinct or not. I mean, there's a lot of public interest in maintaining wildlife and our environment. And we need to have the books for that as well.
That's definitely something that we have to track. On the previous slide, I also noticed there didn't seem to be I didn't see resources, financial and staff resources included on this as well. That seems to be missing to me.
And yeah, I don't know if that belongs there or not, but we need to also speak for nature. And nature is one of our big buckets. And so how do we do that? It's not always clear.
That's a separate issue.
Yeah.
But I know that we do tend to when there's money available for something that the project gets a higher priority.
Would that go under express need by any chance?
Under express
The
need,
next slide.
the resources that doesn't necessarily translate to
I'm
need.
thinking about what Shannon.
Oh, you're trying to say-
Yes,
Yeah.
the impact, like ecological impact.
But when you think, and we don't know what the authors are thinking as they were building this, was that a factor that was taken into consideration as you built, because it is part of our objective, I guess, for the BRC is to not only look at open space, but to look at the environmental conditions that's around that.
Is there any independent consultants we can seek advice? Just addressing what Shani says, say, if we have an oversubscribed enjoy catalog, if we expand program in the parks, but there's too much for the park to do.
Yeah, in the most part, it's probably, it's not a problem, but sometimes.
I think where I would start is trying to reach out to some of the people who, the architects of this plan.
Yeah,
To start and as far as having a consultant to assist with this, there's a funding question associated with that. But it's
Yeah.
not better, yeah.
Of course.
or somebody can donate his hours.
Volunteer.
Yeah.
Chair, is our intent right now to change the master plan or just explain where the master plan was at a particular time? And then move on in our agenda to looking at our priorities as they align with the council. I'm a little confused about trying to change some of the things here.
So there will be, it's a good question. There. It's a kind of a yes and no, there is direct tie-in and there's not. So as we look to create our priorities, which is really kind of we tend to do it in more of a bottom-up approach where we'll look at city council's priorities, but we'll also focus first on the projects that were that we think are the priorities and see how those fit into buckets of priorities we establish and how that aligns with the city council.
Yeah.
Highlighting the need that the part of a master plan review is something that we need to do this year. In addition to continuing on with a project like a wellness center gym and looking for dedicating more parkland. Move on.
I don't know
sorry.
where this belongs, but sometimes there are opportunities that are not going through. Like if the new donor comes and says, oh, I'll build something.
Yeah, that is referenced in somewhere. I could just read a little bit about this. So these are the review processes, but the review, step one of the review process is staff, individual, or a community group proposed to the project or program. Step two is staff reviews the proposal to determine if the project aligns with the community's vision, master plan principles and goals, and if there's a compelling case that can be made. If not, it stops there. Then the step three is analyzing the need using the categories. These same needs and opportunities categories that are also included in the chapter of the master plan. You know, in some cases, the information may not be readily available for staff to make an adequate evaluation. So we might need additional meetings with the proposer, local experts, or conducting further research. And so staff may recommend conducting specific technical study on something.
Okay. Yeah.
Then step four of the process is staff making a recommendation to PRC using the results of the step three analysis. And then PRC considers the staff's recommendation at a meeting. That's a short version. Next slide. So, kind of getting back to your question and reviewing the master plan under any circumstances is daunting, maybe not as daunting as the creation of the master plan, but it's a significant undertaking. I don't necessarily, so one, I don't think everything is clearly defined what we need to do. Two, the timeline for this review, given that what we've uncovered, it's probably more than a year for a full comprehensive review of everything we need to do. So I think it's important to prioritize our first steps, which would in creating a work plan item and what we want to take on. The first priorities to me, and so these are suggestions. Start with a higher level review, you know, rather than taking. I think the way most of us look at the master plan is we have an idea of what we're working on, and we zoom in and find the projects related to that, and focus on the details of that rather than being more process oriented. So I think we need to take a look at the master plan and understand the processes that have been identified and recommended by the master plan, and really to optimize our.
All I was saying is that looking at the master plan is good, and it's great that we have this document. And clearly there are things that are missing because the world has changed a great deal. And so if we could create just a list over here that would have things that are clearly missing now, and then kind of move on to work into our discussion is what I thought might be useful.
We're almost done.
Good.
Good. So also a top priority, I think, is to review and update the action plan, and the biggest near-term priority seems to be to look to see how to use the action plan in conjunction with our next CIP process, which is basically starting in the November timeframe or so. And we'll need to talk with staff to figure out, does it need to be earlier or more in the October timeframe in terms of planning that staff is doing the CIP process. So I think first is take a look at the master plan. Let's identify what we're missing, and what we need to make better use of. Let's figure out how to move forward with the CIP process in an optimal way this year, and then in the process of that, let's identify. Let's scope out the work that we need to. The secondary priorities that we need to do that will become the priority to work of the master plan review, which will include more the typical or more intuitive detailed status review of each of the projects and programs, which you think about when you're doing the master plan review. Community outreach and community input needs to be a part of this process, so we need to decide how to do that. I've added this specific 5-year recommendations from policies 2G and 6A under there. And kind of in general, we kind of both through party 1 and party 2, we're looking to establish best practices for the commission to follow moving forward. And so we're as part of the best practices, we should have a kind of an annual checklist of things that we should be doing, and also a checklist of things that we should be doing for individual projects. Any questions or comments on this without dwelling too much further?
But when your work plan be started your checklist. I mean, because that basically what everything that we're sort of doing, let's say for the year, should be sort of targeted to what's in the.
Yes, we have been working towards that, and part of the evaluation of the action plan as well is we need to make it as, we need to decide is this something that makes sense to use moving forward. A lot of effort was put in to creating it, and a lot of and the vision was that this would be something that's much easier to adapt on an annual basis than the master plan. And I think it's a document that's in the control of staff with commission input. So it's something that can evolve more agilely and dynamically. So these are questions.
2015, there were several surveys that led to the development of the plan. Those surveys, there was an initial survey that looked like citywide. There were more than 1,000 people who participated in that. Following that, there were more like slight surveys looking at ethnicity, looking at where people lived, whether they had children or didn't have children, all sorts of additional surveys. And I think that the plan reflects most of that, but and maybe some attitudes have changed, but I'm pretty sure that a lot of the big buckets haven't really changed. People appreciate parks in Palo Alto. They love them. There's things they want. And after COVID, there's probably some changes, but I wouldn't expect huge changes when you call 1,000 people and more. So I think that could be really, having those surveys available would be helpful to look at whether what we have in the plan reflects those sentiments that were expressed. And when we look at different different line items and say, well, should we continue with this or maybe change it, or maybe the progress was made or not made, but keep that.
Yes, so there is when the master plan was getting created, there was a binder, a notebook that was given to each of the commissioners, and then a digital copy. So all the resources that were gathered throughout the process. There is apparently a digital version of this as well. We're looking to locate this.
I have the surveys.
Okay.
If you want to look at the Parks and Rec Commission meetings, one of them was March 24, 2015.
Why don't we take this offline?
Yeah, okay.
And then let's look for that information. But I think it is important to. A big part of this focus is not reinventing the wheel.
Yeah.
There's a lot of work, a lot of hard work and heavy lifting that's been done before us. So let's leverage this and take advantage of it.
So a couple of things occurred to me, if I could. First of all, if we all could see a copy of what's on that action plan, that would be great to check off and see what we've really done, because I think we've really done a lot.
Absolutely.
And second, so we don't have to maybe go and do it again. And secondly, I'd love to hear what the staff thinks about the usefulness of this particular action plan. Not today, but at some point. Is it adding extra busy work, or is it doing something that will move us forward?
That's kind of what I was alluding to determining if this is something we should use. Darren, do you have any comments you'd like to make?
Yeah, it's a great question, and I think by virtue of the fact that staff haven't really used that in the last 5 years, is slightly indicative of, we've got other methodologies for tracking those things that have been successful. It doesn't mean that this wouldn't be better though. And I think a fresh eye on this is really helpful for staff too. So I'm all for re-examining the action plan, going with it through our partners for Public Works Engineering. Peter Jensen's here representing that team, and they're integral to our city development of CIPs. And I think the action plan would feed that and kind of cross over. But there's also the program piece to that, and we haven't looked very closely. And I think that needs a fresh perspective too. So I'm all in.
But you wouldn't be recommending that we would allocate money to do this and to have a consultant and do the whole thing. I mean,
My hunch is we could do it with staff and the
with
PRC.
staff, yeah,
Yeah, I believe so.
thank you.
Next slide, please. Unless there's further questions, comments. Okay. So as we work to create our priorities, as I mentioned before, our projects, initiatives come from city council directive, from staff directives and priorities from commission initiatives. Most of the staff priorities are based, are set in stone based on what there's funding for. So Darren's going to review the staff priorities for the coming the calendar year that's in process in the coming fiscal year. And this is important for us to be aware of and take into consideration as we establish our priorities.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. I can go into depth where you have questions. Otherwise, if you'd like me to move kind of fast, I'm glad to. Some of these are new capital projects. The first one, for example, this is the Baylands Boardwalk, where wooden pilings were impacted by an aquatic shipworm. It started eating away. And so we're in the exploration phase on what the repair would look like. That's what that CIP is for. And then shortly to follow, a repair CIP would be independent of that. So it's in the exploration phase. And I mentioned these, they have varying degrees of demand on staff. This one is pretty heavy on both the Public Works Engineering Department and the Community Services Department in terms of staff time. The second one's one example where it's not really staff heavy. The gate at the entrance to the Baylands used to be manually opened and in the morning, still is, and then closed manually in the evening. The contract that we did that with is expired. We got rid of it as a cost saving measure. And in the interim, we've asked for other departments to help out when they can, manually closing that gate in the evenings. It doesn't always work. And so this is to automate that gate so that we can have it closed in the evenings every time. That's an example of the CIP that's really not very heavy staff dependence. Some of these are old projects that haven't got across the finish line. The Baylands Comprehensive Conservation Plan is one of those. The next one, Bulwer Park, is a large scale park improvement project. Peter Jensen is going to be leading that one. It's got a lot of the master plan elements in it. Park acquisition, right? Park, we purchased and dedicated parkland, which joined part of that park. We've got a dog park, we've got a park restroom, we've got native pollinator plants going in there. A lot of master plan elements went into this one. I think it's a great example of, we did learn from our master plan, we did take action in putting into a CIP plan, and now we're taking action to implement it. It's an exciting one. Cameron Park's smaller park improvement project. It's a good example of ones that's done by Community Services Department. The larger scale projects like the aforementioned Bulwer, typically led by our Public Works Engineer, Peter, and some of our colleagues from that department. So Cameron will be led by my group. It's a smaller one, around 200,000, mainly just the playground and some small amenities. Coverly Field Westerns is coming. You've heard about that. Presenting to you before. Our turf replacement at El Camino Park coming done. That's have reached its 8-year lifespan, so it's now due for replacement. The foothills were on the Lake Dock. This has been on the agenda for CIPs for quite some time and often gets pushed out. You'll see that. It's usually between a couple factors that lead to that. One is there's no staff time to implement. That's probably the most common, and that's partly the case here, and partly the case is we have certain money that we put towards repairs to extend the lifespan of an asset. So it reached the end of its lifespan. We found little techniques and extra money to put towards repairs to extend it out a little bit longer. And so we've done that for that project, but now it's due. We're gonna aim for this fiscal year to work on that. The Foothills Park improvement project, this is an exciting one. This is primarily aimed at addressing the changes in the preserve that happened when we opened to the public. So all of a sudden, our population visitation went way up, and it changed the use patterns. And we recognize this park was really well formatted for 1965, when you might have had a far smaller number of visitors. But now that we have so many more coming in, we really need to make sure we've got a pedestrian pathway to get people off the road, that we've got fencing in the right ways to protect our natural areas, and that these sort of antiquated parking areas that are ill-defined are more defined and effective. So just an update on that. That will be coming to the PRC relatively soon. Peter, Mega, and our team are working collectively on that, and hopefully we'll have some plans not too far from now where we can present it to you. Golf course netting, there's a section of between the golf course and the airport where balls are going in and hitting planes. They've requested this for quite some time, and we're going to make that happen. Golf course mitigation monitoring, we talked a little bit about that. It's an area where the city is really behind, my group in particular, in the obligatory monitoring that was part of the renovation of that golf course in 2018. And so this puts money towards that, and we're going to be putting a lot of staff time to try to correct our deficiency there. The Mitchell Park Dog Park project that has come to the PRC already, so now it's the implementation period. It's really a matter of backlog on that one. So we had the Cameron Park, Ramos Park, waiting to get to purchasing, lots of bidding challenges, put some of those projects out to bid 3 times, and either the bids were not adequate, meaning that the person bidding on it, the group bidding on it, didn't have the right credentials, or the prices were way out of our price range. And so it's been really challenging. It takes a long time to get through the bidding process as is, and when it doesn't work and you have to do it 3 times, it's challenging. So it creates a backlog. Mitchell Park Dog Park is coming after Cameron and Ramos, and then we'll do that one. The Piers Park Improvement Project is coming soon. Ramos, as I mentioned before, the Ring Canal Restroom Project, this has come to the commission before too, so that will happen in FY24. And lastly, the Robles Park. It's a lot of projects for a very small amount of staff to implement. And we always get asked this question, both by council and the commission, boy, this is ambitious. Do you really think you're going to get to it? And the answer is always the same, that we're going to give it our best effort. It's likely that some of these might not, and they might find their way onto the FY25 capital plan as well. But if everything, I always tell them, if everything goes exactly right and there's no hiccups, we can do it. It's rare that that's the case, but we're gonna give it our best shot.
And is there any way that we can know sort of the projected times on each one of these? I know it's dependent on bidding, and gosh, I understand how bad it's been and everything, but you know, we see presentations and we think that the dog park is moving ahead, or it's not moving ahead, and you say to some dog owner, gosh, and you know, and it's nothing happens.
Yeah.
So is there a way that the commission can have more knowledge? I know it's tough to put in a timeline.
Yeah, I can.
Can we integrate this status into the action plan?
Yeah.
And we just review the.
We're making lots of updates because it just seems that a lot of them are out of our control, like that 3 bidding thing, right? That tax on like 6 months or more. And it wasn't anticipated. I thought we'd get going after that first bid. It's an example where I had a projected timeline in mind. Bidding process went awry. And I find myself 6 months later still trying to get a contract. So I can give our best guess and then just know that those are loose times predicated on things I can't control.
Let's tagging into that. Can you, when you're building a timeline based on, well, I assume you guys have also defined the priorities for these, right? And there's different staff and departments that are involved, and there's probably some overlapping projects, like public works or whatever that group might be. So I mean, I would assume they have kind of a project plan that they're using, and factored into that would be the bidding process and all of the players who are involved in that. That kind of gives you, I guess, more a realistic timeline as to when you can expect that to be completed, because I think what Commissioner Brown, Commissioner Krebs is saying is that basically we might get asked those types of questions based on a project that the public knows is happening and knowing that we're in a commission is, so what's happening the next?
Yeah.
And I guess if you could go out to a realistic timeline or even, I guess, the public, that time, I don't know, make it available to the public, but it should be something that's almost like a living document. It changes based on, the weather can change things too. And, contractors going on strike and that type of thing can happen too. So I think it is pretty important to have some type of timeline involved.
I struggle with that. You're absolutely right. The public has a right to know, the commission has a right to know, here's when we think we're gonna do a given project. When I put one out a date, even if it's just a season and I miss it grossly, people attach that like it's in stone.
Yeah.
You said, Darren Anderson, this would be done in fall of such year and I miss it. They get very upset with me. And I could still do that. We could go for that. We just have to know these things are very slippery and move a lot.
I think all projects move
Yeah,
some fashion and you there's a wiggle room in
Yeah.
all of those, right? And so you try and do your best
yeah,
estimate based on what that timeline is and if it's being delayed as a result of something not, you can explain that.
yeah.
The 4 months of weather, rain, no one really expected that. And
Right.
There's not much you can do even after the rain, because if it involves a fill, you gotta wait for the fill to dry and those types of things. True. And the public can understand those types of things happening because they're living it as well. So
Yeah.
I think once you have a timeline where you can provide some kind of qualifications of why it's not happening, I think it would probably help us.
Would it be helpful if instead of like a timeline, we keep changing at our meetings, there was a list of these priorities with some sort of,
Scheduling.
yeah, like not a
So-
schedule, but status.
Okay.
Status, still in process, looking at bids
Yeah.
examined, I don't know, just something that is very general, doesn't exactly have a date, but have some level of information.
I think that's a great point. I was thinking maybe, Darren, it would be possible, maybe during the department report, just using this as like a
Yeah,
frame.
that's where-
And if there are updates, it's not gonna be updates on every single one, every meeting. If there are updates, that would be a great time to provide them, just so that we're aware and then the public.
Yep, I can do that.
Yeah, I guess if you set a milestone for each time frame, maybe it's also help you or help the public to understand where this is accomplishable or not.
Yeah.
I think that gets back to Darren's point though, of putting a date in place and then setting himself up for.
Yeah.
It'd be better.
But having a list that the department reports and just saying Bayland progress, still being investigated or going through state law or being, just the status, where
Yeah.
we're at, so we know, and if it's us, we can answer.
Yeah, it sounds like if there was some way to create a dashboard.
Yeah.
Where it was just the general status on this thing, right?
Yeah, that's true.
No, it's-
Maybe that's something that one or two commission members could take up. Project to work on.
I'm more than happy to.
And I'm glad to start with the department report as a place to say, here's a snapshot of where we're at, different things. It's great.
Okay.
Wait a minute, just volunteer.
We haven't. We're going to be identifying our ad hocs.
Liaison on your fingers and then.
But here,
My life.
it's on public record.
Some other priority projects that we've got, these are often initiatives that the commission's already moving, like skate park. I've noted the parking analysis, that's the next step. So we've got a conceptual design from the skate park group. And now it's to see if parking is necessary, given the draw that this specific designed park would pull in. So I've got a list of consultants to reach out to, and I've got funding for this. So now it's just getting them on board and getting going. I anticipate that to be fairly short term, like less than 3 months is my hope.
So what else would be, what else related to the skate park would be a priority for this coming year?
Yeah, the ad hoc, the current existing ad hoc, and I discussed that just a little bit in terms of, do we need a new ad hoc for that? Where do we see that? Maybe we can discuss more when we get to that piece. But we're thinking there might not be a lot of tasks that the PRC would have to do that for that, but we can get more into that one. Our e-bike policy, so we spent a lot of time recently with staff in the ad hoc and the commission developing that. And we committed to coming back and re-examining that. It's a dynamic and changing and evolving recreation. And I think we've got to stay on top of what our other agencies are doing and how it's working in our preserves. So that'll be an ongoing thing that we need to spend time on. Our partnership development, develop our partnership with First Tee on the driving range improvements. We're having discussions with them ongoing, but it's been fairly slow going. We really need to invest more time with them to sit down at the table and start moving that and making things happen. Of course, continue offering diverse programs. Our recreation department works hard to do that. Re-examining our court policy use. So we just had a court policy development. We made headway there, providing more access for pickleball, particularly in the evenings. And we committed at the 6-month mark of that being in place to come back and do more evaluation. How is this working? So that will be something an ad hoc and staff continue to spend time on. And then some key filling of positions. We've talked before about our lack of coaches and how that impacts our ability to offer programs, in particular around middle school athletics and teen center activities. We need to fill those positions and recruit. We haven't had a lot of success there for a number of years. It's just a difficult one. And we need to dedicate time for that because it's such an impactful role by having people fill those positions. More kids get to participate, which is what we want. And then lastly, we've got a big position to fill this division manager of open space parks and golf. That'll help do a lot of the kind of projects we just talked about, as well as just kind of fill some voids where our limited staffing are falling behind.
And that position, that's your position you held prior to becoming an assistant.
That's right, yeah. It's been vacant for about 4 years.
Is it like,
Question.
sorry, go ahead.
Okay, so you said hiring early coaches for recreation programs. I'm just wondering, how does that tie in with the programs that, the public goes on to log on for example, the summer programs?
It is those programs like middle school athletic, but it limits the number of offerings we can have by virtue of how many coaches we can recruit. Yeah, that's one of the most restrictive elements, unfortunately, is getting staff on there.
Yes, and related to the question, you said there's like vacant position for a long time. Is it because lack of talent or like
For the division manager one or
Yeah,
the coaches?
above both of them? Yeah.
The coaches, I don't think it's lack of talent. I think, I don't know. That's a complicated one. I'm not sure I know the answer to. The second one, I know we didn't offer it. So it was just more of a cost saving thing that, yeah, we filled a assistant director position. I moved from this position into the assistant director and this just stayed vacant. Yeah, so we made do with the number of staff we had.
I think there's a lot of factors that play into the problems with the coaches, et cetera. It's part-time work. It's not perhaps not the most accessible time of the day for people to be available. The pay is the compensation is not particularly high, probably.
I'm wondering if, resources from Stanford students or graduate students having something that can connect with Stanford.
I think so. I think we've got to get creative. In fact, I think Vice Mayor Stone had suggested maybe we be reaching out to the senior community. Maybe they could fill these roles and have more availability, which is a good idea.
That's true too.
I think we've got to do more to find a way.
Not working right now.
It's not working, right?
So do we have like a specific criteria for that?
For the coaching.
Yeah.
I do know there are certain levels of experience that they need for parts, and maybe it's looser in others, so there's training. I have to dig in a little bit more with our rec staff to understand that.
So there's a job description posted on the website?
Yeah, I think they've steadily recruited nonstop for that, as I understand.
Wow.
Yeah,
maybe we could forward to people.
Sure.
To our networks and help you.
All right, now looking at the priorities more specifically. City councils. Excuse me, city council's 4 stated priorities are listed on the left. For the current calendar year. 2 of these align very directly with the Parks and Recreation Commission review. 2 of them, are for the most part not applicable. I think there's a couple of aspects of each of the priorities that do apply. I think both climate change and natural environment are different aspects that apply, and safety and health are different aspects that apply. And when I say just different aspects, some of these aspects may apply to some programs and projects. That's why I kind of separated them out. The primary difference in city council's priorities is natural environment was added. Otherwise, the priorities are about the same. Our priorities are listed on the far right, which Vice Chair already referred to in her presentation. And so kind of the starting point for us is looking at these priorities from last year. To what extent do we want these to carry over to next year? Do we want to make any changes to them? Do we want to add a new priority or remove one of these priorities? And it's a good place for a starting conversation now. If anybody has any comments. Okay, let's start with the first priority. Maximize recreation opportunities, considering available resources. I think the primary priority here is maximize recreation opportunities, and then we added a qualifier there afterwards to say that let's be realistic about this. Any comments on how we like that the past year, or how we'd like to move it forward, we might like to change.
Well, I think, I think when you, what we have considering available resources, I think. Going back to Darren's presentation, with the priorities that we established for the city based on the resources that you have available. Would be maybe change that considering available resources that's defined. I mean, I'm trying to figure out how can we align that with the priorities that Aaron and his group have established. That those are resources that would be kind of, I guess, needed for any projects that we might want to look at. Based on what's in the work plan.
So based on staff's priorities are predetermined to a large extent on CIP funding with from the budget. Given that, do we want to adjust our desire to maximize the opportunities to take into consideration, or is it sufficient that available resources to me is primarily 2 things. It's funding and it's manpower. And I know we're aware of it. Perhaps there's a surprise to some, or it's a little less intuitive. The more valuable resource for us is staff time and staff resources, and funding to an extent is less an issue. So I think I think we're covered. I'm interested in, this has been here, Darren, if you think that there's anything we need to change there.
As I interpret the available resources, I'm incorporating staff time and other projects that we've got and funding, all those things too. So that's how I was interpreting.
So that would be pulling people into meetings, whether they do weekly, monthly, or whatever.
Well, at least
Yeah.
recognizing that staff have, various commitments and workloads, and we fit this in as best we can.
And do some of your staff find cross into other commissions, or is it just?
Seldomly, but on occasion, yeah.
So,
Good. I have some hesitation about the word maximize, and I was hoping to have more question of diverse recreation opportunities and programming rather than maximize, because maximize, what we've seen in the past year is like there's different groups and they want more of what their particular sport or interest is. And it's really hard to maximize, and we have very limited resources and space. So I would just
How about optimize?
optimize is better. I would just like, I would want to see more programs and recreation offered. And the programs comes in the second, in terms of equity, access, and inclusion, totally proper. But I'm also looking for more diversification in the programs that we're offering and recreation. So I'm okay with balance, but I would like to have recreation and programming.
How about optimize recreation opportunities and diversity, diversification?
Why not just offer diverse recreation opportunities?
diversified.
Diverse is that word. That's probably diverse.
Offer diverse recreation opportunities. Optimized for
Optimize diverse recreation opportunities. Darren, can you start typing that into first?
I can't type it and share.
Yeah, type it in, sure.
Oh, it can, no. If I click on it and goes to the next screen.
Okay.
But what I can do is ask, I was taking notes, so I'll capture that. And or if you have a separate Word doc,
Let me bring this up 1 second.
I'll keep sharing, and what we'll do is type on another doc where I'll be writing it down.
I think what I'm trying
Actually,
to,
yeah, I was just saying.
What I'm-
So we can go to this sheet for
what I'm trying to get away from is the issue that we had with tennis and pickleball, which both are legit. We need to provide for both, but people come and say, oh, there's more people using this court for pickleball than tennis, so kick the tennis people out. Now, I'm not suggesting that, that it's not correct, that there's more people per square foot and time using pickleball, but I still think we need to offer both. So saying diverse captured both and maximize may not. That was my concern.
excuse me, Javad, could you do the customization in this section below for FY24? No, yeah, there.
So this is where I'm gonna be.
Yeah, that's where you want to be entering these stuff. You can start by copying the old stuff.
So how about offer diverse recreation opportunities, optimizing available resources? I'm actually looking for offer diverse recreation opportunities, optimizing available resources. But that means optimizing both staff resources, but also space.
Sort of similar thoughts, but also how could we tie up with community safety and health while creating a diverse program? So hypothetically, say we have meditation class in a park, doesn't need more space, just on the lawns. How would we address that?
I think that's cultural diverse, right?
Yeah, it's captured that.
Yeah, that's what I was trying to
Do we
do, to
need to
capture.
highlight to increase the community house or not? And that's, it's a question, a statement, because I don't know how in the past, the verbiage is developed according to these powers. And also in terms of diverse as well, the increase of Asian American community, maybe offering Tai Chi classes, etc. It's also good for community house.
So something like offer diverse recreational opportunities that promote,
Community
Yeah.
safety. Yeah,
okay,
yeah, that
or
sounds good,
well-being, health
Yeah,
and well-being,
yeah.
something like that.
Yeah, that's something.
My own minor observation is that there's no kind of like descriptive word like how we have maximize for equity. It doesn't really say what are we doing with equity, it doesn't say what we're doing with biodiversity. So that was my only comment.
So do we have to, I sort of resonate to that too, if we put it in a more concrete level, equity access inclusion for program for, I don't know, for seniors, but do I have to pour out certain?
I think it's for everyone, right?
For everyone, yeah, for everyone, yeah. That's true. For all the community members.
Provide equity, access and inclusion. We
Or
offer,
advance.
provide, and then the last one. Yeah, one or the other.
Promote.
Advances.
I like advanced.
Yeah, like advance.
Advance is good. And the last one, I don't know if we need the word there.
Improve. Or
Enhance.
enhance.
Yeah. I think so. We lost the change, climate change, we lost a couple of
The GE.
spelling.
Thank you.
Well, we don't, it's maybe take, it's kind of weird, you don't enhance climate change, so.
Also.
Maybe we need two verbs, enhance the biodiversity and combat climate change. Well, we can also enhance climate change resilience, so
Yeah.
everyone is.
Resilience instead of,
Yeah,
if you.
yes, then we use one word.
Let's capitalize that.
I think the safety and health is still missing.
Yeah, do we need to call it out? I think I agree, might be worthwhile to call it out.
I don't think so. I
No,
think the diverse, it gives us a broad brush.
Get rid of the after enhance. Yeah. And when we decide to use a comma before the ampersand or not. Is this something? So
So
let's put a comma after parks, a comma after sustainability. Park.
do you want to add to the recreation opportunities in public health? I mean, that's,
Health and well-being,
and what?
health and well-being, so something that covers like mental health.
And promoting, optimizing available resources and promoting.
community health and wellness. That's-
Or should that? That's part of the same priority, yes.
No, I think the promoting community health and well-being belong before the optimizing available Although you don't want to optimize resources for well-being, that's kind of a high priority, so. I'm a little. How do you word it?
Optimize available resources to offer diverse recreation opportunities and promote community health and wellness.
Yeah, that sounds good.
So optimize. First one becomes optimized. Here is a comma after resources. To, put in the word to.
Promote.
Okay,
That sounds good.
You make it resilience to climate change instead of climate change resilience.
I like climate change resilience better.
You
Yeah.
Okay.
I think we follow
Not
this,
gonna
so
insist on that.
Yeah.
I think it just,
Feels better.
I don't think it's ambiguous.
Okay.
Okay. In the past, we've considered the projects we'd be working on and looking to see how they would align under our new priorities. I'm not sure that that's necessary. If we're happy with these, we could have a motion to adopt these. Do we need to have available in front of resources? Is that
We don't.
redundant?
Mm-mm.
Would be better out.
Yeah,
Resources aren't available, they're not resources.
Yeah, yeah, great.
Do we need to say? We need to say offer, we be optimizing resources for recreation opportunities.
I think it does need an effort.
Or
And we
maybe
have the
say-
other words there, so this kind of,
Maybe for diversify recreation.
Say it again.
If we still optimize resources to diversify, would that work? Without the offer.
No, I think. I think we want to, I think. To me, diverse means a broad range,
Right.
whereas diversify suggests that there's a problem to.
Okay, yeah,
address.
that's true.
I would only take that comma out.
Which one?
Yeah, after opportunity,
Why?
I like it.
because it's two things, they're not like, it just, if you guys like to come up with it, I just feel like it doesn't
If
belong
it's my
there.
second language, I leave it to the chair. Vice chair.
I think the comma helps separate. Confusion between the and between community health and wellness.
Okay, I think they're equally important, so I kind of like to see them together. And
so
by
she
the
liked
way,
comma.
Commissioner Way, it's my second language too.
Yeah.
We have 3 women here with English as a second language.
All in favor of a comma?
It's a big
Are we splitting hairs here?
I think we're done. You can put the comma back if you like, and we'll be done with it.
That's what a comma after opportunities is. Okay,
I'll make the motion that we accept the these new recreation parks and recreation commissions. Priorities as on the board now.
Thank you for the motion. Before we do that, can I suggest that we get rid of the ampersands and just put in and?
Can you repeat that again?
Replace the
Parks
ampersands
and open space. Yeah.
What else? Thanks.
and above and below.
All right,
Commissioner Kleinhouse, would you like to make a motion?
yeah, sure, same motion, only with this language.
Thank you.
And I'll second.
Thank you. Yvonne, we'll call it, please.
Chair Greenfield,
Yes.
Vice Chair Brown,
Yes.
Commissioner Cribs,
Yes.
Commissioner Freeman,
Yes.
Commissioner Kleinhouse,
Yes,
Commissioner Oche,
Yes.
and Commissioner White.
Yes.
Chair, that's a 7-0 vote.
Thank you. Let's take a break.
Thank you.
10 minutes. Thank you. Okay, we are back. We have successfully established our priorities for the coming fiscal year. Thank you, everyone. And now we'll work to establish and assign our ad hoc committees and liaison roles for the coming fiscal year. This is an action, and we'll start by taking a look at our previous ad hoc liaison roles and then see where we go from there. I'm going to share screen. And I did check previously to see if there were any members of the public to speak on the previous item or not. And I don't see any attendees at the moment as well. Share. And you read that. Stop share.